Moving to the northwest side and the number 1 seed in this region, the 1956 Crispus Attucks Tigers with an unblemished 31-0 record. They're going to be taking on the winner of a play-in game between the 2017 Ben Davis Giants, a team led by Mark James as the head coach, tons of other talent, including Aaron Henry. They're taking on the 2011 Metropolitan team, a team that finished with a 22-6 record. To round out the top half of the bracket, you've got the 4-seed 2015 Park Tudor Panthers, finishing with a 26-2 record, a team led by Bryce Moore, a guy that we've talked about previously in our Southeast region. They're taking on the 2000 rebuff Jesuit Braves. And finally, in the bottom half of this bracket, now we've got the 1955 Attucks Tigers. They're taking on the winner of the 2012 Carmel Greyhounds and the 2015 Garin Catholic Golden Eagles. And finally, the last 2 teams in this bracket, the 1965 Washington team with a 29-2 record. They're taking on the 6-seeded 1989 Lawrence North Wildcats, the first state title team under Jack Kiefer's tenure. Joining us to break down this Northwest regional bracket, he's a man that needs no introduction. We've got Coach Bob Lovell joining us, as well as Ken Barlow. Guys, thanks for joining us. Everybody, what are your thoughts on this bracket?
Well, gentlemen, as the oldest member here and one of the oldest fossils going, it's hard to go against 55 and 56 Attucks teams because, let's face it, they had the greatest player in the history of, in my estimation, of basketball in Oscar Robertson, and both are compelling stories. And so while the 56 team was 31-0, the 55 team was the first team in the United States to have an all-African-American starting 5, the first all-African-American school to win a state title in the entire country. The historical perspective of those Attucks teams, really, and the other teams, to give them their due, are good and talented and did what they did. But from a historical perspective for the entire country and the history of basketball, it's really hard to argue against the Attucks teams.
I think you're absolutely right, Coach. The 55 and 56 Attucks, I mean, it's monumental for the entire country. You're absolutely right. And for those guys that come back, I'm a little biased maybe towards 56 because now they came back and they went undefeated.
Right.
With a target on their back. So I don't know. I guess you can say 55 as well because it had never been done. And then those guys go and repeat back when that had never been done in the state of Indiana within itself. So I agree. I think the 55 or 56 Attucks team, I'm going to lean a little bit towards 56 only because, it's one thing to win. It's another thing to come back and repeat, particularly in a state where that hasn't happened very often.
There's a couple of sleeper teams in this bracket. The first being the 1965, Washington Continentals, led by George McGinnis. Oh, is Billy Keller?
That's Billy Keller. Billy Keller and it's
Downey.
The guy from Purdue.
Ralph Taylor.
Bob,
those guys
yeah.
That team.
Yeah,
You're talking about the '69 Washington team that ran the table and won the championship in 1969.
Okay.
McGinnis, Downing, Wayne Pack, those guys.
Yep.
Okay. And then the other team I would say is the 1989 Lawrence North team. I mean, they had Todd Leary, who went on to IU, and then Eric Montrose, who went on to win an NCAA title with North Carolina. They were a talented bunch as well. So those are the 2 sleeper teams to me in this bracket. But
I think they also didn't they have Derwin Webb on that 89?
Derwin Webb was on that team, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Victor Bush also, he's an assistant principal over at Lawrence North now, ironically enough, was a small power forward over there for them on that team. He was a role player. Yeah, it's tough to even talk about some of these other teams when you talk about a team as good as Attucks was. I mean, like Carmel was a talented team in 2012, and they beat a really good team that year. They beat the Gary Harris-led team, who was Mr. Basketball that year, and Zach Urban was a junior. They had the two guards, Michael, the Bubble Big brothers, Michael Vobovic, also Zach McRoberts was a I believe he was a sophomore that year, but nobody compares to Attucks.
Wait a minute, but Carmel came back and won it in 13.
They sure did.
Yeah,
They sure did.
Yeah. So maybe they're underrated on this group.
Well, that's why, you know, I even though I'm being a Fishers resident for so long, I'm not the biggest Carmel fan because they're always beating us. But you know, they deserve some mention for that run they have. And I was at that matchup with Carmel and Hamlin Southeastern. I mean, they beat them by almost 20 points that night in the sectional title game and went on to win the state title. So I mean, they were really tough. They just fundamentally sound group, and they play hard and they play well. They still do.
They didn't make very many mistakes either.
Right.
Absolutely. So really, I mean, you know, consensus is there's nobody that can touch Attucks in this bracket here. So as we see here, of course, the play-in game would be Ben Davis and Indy Met. I'm probably going to lean toward Ben Davis in that one, easy. But you know, the number 8 Ben Davis versus Attucks, I don't even think that's a question there. I think
that's a tall task in itself. I've got to think 56 Attucks is probably the safest number 1 seed of all the top seeds in our bracket.
I think so too. But then if you go down and look at the 55 Attucks, you know, they're going to play the Carmel, the Guerin Catholic play-in game, and you got to go with perhaps Carmel in that game. But then you got 55 Attucks versus 2012 Carmel. You know, I think that's a pretty easy, you know.
And yeah,
looking at this, you know, I got to think that 65. That's where the upset is. So Montrose is probably going to knock off the number 3 seeded Washington team in 65.
Oh, wait a minute. You got Billy Keller and Ralph Taylor on this team, man. Come on.
I agree, which they were a running bunch. But you got Leary, like you said, you know, Montrose in the middle there, size. I got to go Lawrence North in that one.
I mean, there were guys like over at Tech. They had the Price brothers over there. I mean, they weren't 6'11", but they had Mike Price, right?
Price.
When he had 65, 66, somewhere around there.
They were there. Mike was there in 67 because I played in Plainfield. We played in the Indianapolis Regional, played Tech, and we saw them up close and personal in terms of how good they were. But it's you look though at that Washington and LN matchup. That's a tough one because of differences in style. Ralph Taylor played against guys every time he played in the post. He played against bigger guys, but Montrose is a special player. So I'm like you. I kind of give the edge a little bit to LN in that game.
And so, you know, and then looking at the other matchups for the first round, you know, of course, we pretty much got Carmel slotted in 2012 versus Attucks 55, which will be round 2. Well, actually, no, we'll talk about that game. 1955, 2012 Carmel. I got to go Attucks there. So it would be, you know, my round 2 would be LN versus 55 Attucks. And then if I go up a little bit, I look at the 4-5 matchup. You know, I got to go Park Tudor over Brebeuf. I know you mentioned Michael Bennett and what he did, but I think I might have to go Park Tudor in that matchup. What do you think?
Hey, listen. Park Tudor just got a basketball team in 2014.
They won the state title in 2012 with Yogi and Trey was a sophomore, so they were pretty tough.
Man. Come on, listen. I already gave you guys a prep, man. This is 2012. This is like single A basketball. I hate to say that, but you know what I mean. I hate to say that. I'm kind of scorned about the class basketball thing here. But man, come on, are we gonna really go with a single A team over a 3A team?
They won the state title. They had players. The court is the same length. The baskets, that's a reference from Hoosiers.
Coach Lovell, Ken, thank you again for joining us. And we're going to turn it over to the fans now. Fans, it is up to you to determine who advances out of the Northwest Regional Bracket. Do you see one of the Oscar Robertson teams? Do you see one of the other plucky underdog teams advancing out of this region? You get to decide. Make sure you head to our social pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That is the MIC Network on Facebook, and Mick Network IN on Twitter and Instagram.